Hello and a very warm welcome to today's session brought to you by Team Textbook Super Coaching. I hope all of you are doing really well. I know काफी ज़्यादा anxiety, anxiousness है क्योंकि a lot of you are constantly revisiting the site to check your results, and also a lot of you are checking the other results that are coming in as well. So I wish you great luck. I wish you all the very best because I'm sure जितना आपने hard work करा है उसका results definitely देखने को मिलेगा. And we'll of course be looking at receiving some good news from your end as well. Good evening Neha, good evening everybody. देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से let's just dive into a quick look at today's session. आज जो चीजें हम cover करने वाले हैं, we'll talk preliminary about war novels. War novels are basically novels that are actually inspired by real wars that have taken place. For instance, अगर आप देखेंगे तो आपका Biafran War in African history, या आपके कितने सारे wars चल रहे हैं, World War I, World War II आपका जो आ रहा है in the 20th century. Besides that, we're able to see that there are n number of wars that are being fought all together, जिनके basis पे आपका literature produce हो रहा है, right? So when we are talking about war writings, war novels, these are all works that are actually inspired by actual war events, right? Good evening, Satyendra, Rashmi, Ethereal, Debashish, Damar. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. तो देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से लेट्स जस्ट डाइव इनटू अ क्विक डिस्कशन. मैंने आप लोगों को पहले भी बता दिया आपके मास्टर क्लास का स्केड्यूल. आई विल शेयर दिस आल्सो ऑन द टेलीग्राम विद ऑल ऑफ यू सो दैट ऑल ऑफ यू आर प्रिपेयर्ड. सो फ्रॉम 20th January onwards we'll be having 15 master classes and आपका इवन गेट और नेट की वर्कशीट्स हम लोग 22nd January से क्लासरूम क्लास में भी करेंगे. So we are targeting completion of 500 questions via these classes altogether. So don't forget to block your calendar. I'll keep on reminding all of you also about it. Good evening, Rani. Good evening. तो आज सबसे पहले हम लोग क्या करेंगे? सबसे पहले हम लोग war novels के बारे में देखेंगे. We'll be talking about war novels. We'll be discussing about war literature overall. तो हम लोग war novels को देखेंगे, हम लोग war writings को देखेंगे. We will be looking at war novels overall. ये सारी चीजें हम लोग आज अच्छी तरह से कवर करेंगे. 5 important war novels को देखेंगे. उससे पहले देर आर 5 आइस ब्रेकर क्वेश्चंस, ठीक है? तो 5 आइस ब्रेकर क्वेश्चंस हैं और 5 वॉर नॉवेल्स हम कवर करेंगे. आई विल ऑल्सो शेयर सम एडिशनल रीडिंग मटेरियल फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू ऑन द टेलीग्राम प्लेटफॉर्म. तो आप एक बार उसको भी अच्छी तरीके से देख लीजिएगा. सो देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से लेट्स क्विकली गेट स्टार्टेड विद द आइस ब्रेकर क्वेश्चन. सो आई होप यू आर क्लियर. आज जैसे आई टेल यू सम वॉर नॉवेल्स दैट वील बी लुकिंग एट. वील बी लुकिंग एट जैसे फॉर इंस्टेंस रीजेनरेशन बाय पैट बार्कर. वील बी लुकिंग एट स्लॉटरहाउस 5 बाय कर्ट वॉनगार्ड. We'll be looking at Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow, which is coming in. War and Peace by Tolstoy. तो इस तरह के important war novels को, इस तरह के जो आपके important war novels हैं, we'll be covering those. And like I said, we'll also be having your good evening, Pooja, Ravi, Liji, good evening. तो देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से let's just quickly get started. आपका first icebreaker question आ गया है. Half of a Yellow Sun is written by. Who's the writer? उनके सारे और works भी आपके लिए important हैं. Half of a Yellow Sun is written by whom? Who is the writer who's writing Half of a Yellow Sun? Half of a Yellow Sun, इसको अच्छी तरह से देख भी लीजिएगा. और आगे आने वाले टाइम में मैंने आपको वैसे भी बता दिया है कि आपके मास्टर क्लासेस एज वेल एज फाउंडेशन बैच में जो गेट एंड नेट एग्जाम की वर्कशीट्स हम प्रैक्टिस करेंगे. एवरी डे विल बी लुकिंग एट 25 क्वेश्चंस in the foundation batch and 25 questions in plus in your master classes. तो make sure कीजिएगा कि 50 questions आप revise कर रहे हैं. Very good, very good, very good. Satyendra has given the right answer. Satyendra has given the right answer. Pragati Munde has given the right answer. Excellent. Devashish has given the right answer. Dichi is absolutely the correct answer. इसका context क्या है? Biafran War, right? Biafran War is a very important war that we are able to see in the Nigerian context. जो आपका आ रहा है, which you are able to see that comes in Half of a Yellow Sun, right? Half of a Yellow Sun also is an important work. Post colonial literature के perspective से भी ये एक बहुत ही important work है जो आप देख पा रहे हैं, right? And what all is happening? So when we are looking at Half of a Yellow Sun, what are the important aspects that we are able to see? What all are the most important pointers that we are all able to observe over here? Let's just take it one by one. So A, ये आपका post colonial Nigerian writer, that is your Chimama Adichie is writing it, Kosi Adichie is writing it. ये it was published in 2006 by Fourth Estate Publishing House. And ये Biafran War through the characters of Ulana, Ugwu, Richard का जो character है, ये characters के ऊपर भी आपको questions आपके exams में पूछे जा चुके हैं. Half a Yellow Sun by Adichie. Adichie, ठीक है. It is taking place in Nigeria prior to and during the Nigerian Civil War. इसी तरह से आपका अमेरिकन सिविल वॉर आ जाता है, वो भी आपके वॉर राइटिंग्स में आएगा. अमेरिकन सिविल वॉर जो आपका आ रहा है, दैट इज ऑल्सो पार्ट ऑफ योर वॉर नॉवल. सो बायफ्रन वॉर इंपॉर्टेंट है. ये कैरेक्टर्स के नाम उलाना, वो, रिचर्ड, दे आर इंपॉर्टेंट ऑल टुगेदर. इफेक्ट ऑफ वॉर जो जिस तरह से इनके रिलेशनशिप्स को इम्पैक्ट करता है. देयर आर ट्विन डॉटर्स ऑफ दिस इन्फ्लुएंशियल बिजनेसमैन. देयर इज अ प्रोफेसर, ब्रिटिश सिटीजन, एंड नाइजीरियन हाउस बॉय, ठीक है. And you are able to see कि कैसे after the war, so when the war is over, the party that actually wins, and जिसके साइड में आप थे या नहीं थे, that also impacts your entire existence. This is also something that Half of a Yellow Sun wants to talk about, ठीक है. So I hope I'm repeating it again. Half of a Yellow Sun by Adichie. Adichie's other works are also important. आप Nigerian literature में Adichie के works को लिख सकते हैं. इसको अच्छी तरह से cover कीजिएगा because Adichie is important. Good evening Monica, no worries at all, ठीक है. तो Adichie का first important work हम लोगों ने देखा as an icebreaker question. Moving on to the next icebreaker question. Who is the writer who's written Mimic Men? Mimic Men बहुत ही important है. The character of Ralph Singh is also going to be discussed over here. Who's the writer who's written Mimic Men? Mimic Men किसने लिखा है? Who's the writer who's writing Mimic Men? जल्दी से बताइए. When we are talking about Mimic Men, who's the writer who's writing Mimic Men? Mimic Men कौन लिख रहा है? Who's writing Mimic Men? Very good, excellent. So again, आपका जो पोस्ट कॉलोनियल लिटरेचर है, like I said, it's an ongoing topic altogether. आगे आने वाले टाइम में when you're regularly attached with all the classes, you'll be able to see that we'll be discussing that, ठीक है. तो ये चीज आपको याद रखना है. You will have to keep that in mind altogether. Study @SSC. ये आपको क्या लग रहा है कि हम लोग जापानीज और कोरियन लैंग्वेज बोल रहे हैं, है ना? वो अन्यंग हसेयो, राइट. सो ये हम लोग, आपको क्या लग रहा है कि कौन सी भाषा बोल रहे हैं हम लोग? आप लोग कभी कभी तो एकदम जो जोक्स पास कर देते हैं ना इन बिटवीन के बाइलिंगुअल क्लास से ज्यादा कन्वीनियंट रहती है बाइलिंगुअल ही है, राइट. ये हम किसी भी तरह से कोरियन, जापानीज, फ्रेंच, जर्मन ये हम लोग नहीं बोल रहे हैं. एनीवे, alright, good evening to you. Good evening. So Mimic Men जो है, this is by V.S. Naipaul. It was published in 1967. ये आपको चीज याद रखना है. This is centered on the character of Ralph Singh. Ralph Singh कौन है? He's an Indo-Caribbean politician from Isabella, who is telling his entire story altogether. He is in exile in London and he's attempting to write about his political memoirs altogether. ठीक है. तो ये आप प्लीज थोड़ा सा याद रखिएगा कि कैसे Mimic Men, Ralph Singh का जो कैरेक्टर है. I'll also hide myself so that you can see the remaining part as well. ठीक है. So please keep that in mind. Yes, Priyu, we are all waiting for that, and please do let us know how it goes. What is the other support and additional support that you require. We're also waiting for all of your replies to come over. ठीक है. Okay. So again, what are you able to see? You are able to see कि Mimic Men जो आपका आ रहा है, this is an important work overall that is coming in. How Mimic Men by V.S. Naipaul is trying to tell you about Ralph Singh's character altogether. ठीक है. So please keep that in mind, and always remember the concept of mimicry as well जो आपका आ जाता है in your post-colonial studies. That is also something that you'll have to keep in mind. So Half of a Yellow Sun by Adichie, Biafran War में deal कर रहा है. The Nigerian Civil War from 1967 to 70 that is taking place. Here Mimic Men by V.S. Naipaul, centered around the central character of Ralph Singh. ठीक है. Please remember that. Very important. Who is the writer of Lonely Londoners? Lonely Londoners किसने लिखा है? Who is the writer who's written Lonely Londoners? Who's the writer who's written Lonely Londoners? Lonely Londoners again एक बहुत ही important post colonial writer आपका Lonely Londoners लिख रहे हैं. Whom are we talking about? Who is the person that we're discussing who's writing Lonely Londoners? Lonely Londoners आपका कौन लिख रहा है? Who's the writer associated with Lonely Londoners? So Lonely Londoners आपका कौन लिख रहा है? Who's the one who's writing Lonely Londoners? वेरी गुड. सैमुअल सेल्विन इज एब्सोल्युटली द राइट आंसर. देखिए, आपके जो करिबियन राइटर्स हैं, करिबियन लिटरेचर हैं, वैसे ही हम लोग दोबारा से आप लोगों को कवर भी करवाएंगे. आपके डायस्पोरिक राइटर्स हो गए, राइट. योर डायस्पोरिक राइटर्स, योर करिबियन राइटर्स, योर एफ्रो अमेरिकन राइटर्स, योर अफ्रीकन राइटर्स, ये सब आपके इंपॉर्टेंट है. इनका एक लॉन्ड्री लिस्ट बनाइए. मेक अ लॉन्ड्री लिस्ट, कीप इट इन एन एक्सेल फॉर्मेट. चेक कीजिए कि क्या आपने ये सारे कवर किए हैं कि नहीं. आपके ऑस्ट्रेलियन राइटर्स, जैसे वॉर नॉवेल्स जो आज हम कर रहे हैं ना, हम लोग आज तो बेसिक वॉर नॉवेल्स कर रहे हैं, बट आपका काफी सारे काफी सारी यूनिवर्सिटीज में ऑस्ट्रेलियन वॉर नॉवेल्स पढ़ाई जाती हैं, अमेरिकन वॉर नॉवेल्स पढ़ाई जाती हैं, यूरोपियन वॉर नॉवेल्स पढ़ाई जाती हैं। तो थोड़ा आप लॉन्ड्री लिस्ट बनाइए एंड ट्राई टू कवर इट, राइट? सैमुअल सेल्विन इज एब्सोल्युटली द राइट आंसर. This is the Trinidadian writer that we are talking about, who's writing The Lonely Londoners, that is getting published in 1956. This is by Samuel Selvin, like we said, okay? And you know what is it focusing on? The marginalized, the subaltern, the poor, the people who can't speak, working class, black people, all together. जो आपका British Nationality Act आया था, George Lamming का, George Lamming का, who's writing the Castle of Skin, he's also getting immigrants साथ में आ रहा है. West Indians post World War London में उनका क्या situation है, क्या plight है, what are the problems that they are facing all together, right? And London is of course considered to be the center of the world at that time. Everybody was wanting to come over there. It was a coveted city altogether. I'll also hide myself so that you can see the remaining part as well. I'll just quickly hide myself so that you'll be able to see this part as well. So again आपका जो है ना, you are able to see this Windrush generation जो आ रहा है, colored people की story बता रहे हैं, right? And your character Moses Alote, a veteran emigre who's come in to London altogether. Sunday morning जो boys होते हैं, many of them recent arrivals, they come together in the rented home to trade stories, right? They're talking about their stories, they're discussing, they're reminiscing all together. ठीक है? तो अगेन मिमिक मैन रैल सिंह का कैरेक्टर, that is by V.S. Naipaul. Half of a Yellow Sun by Adichie. Lonely Londoners is by Samuel Selvin, the Trinidadian writer. ठीक है? Again, what is happening? The Windrush generation, London becoming the city. Same time पे जॉर्ज लैमिंग भी immigrants लेके आ रहे थे, almost same time पर. ठीक है? Almost same time पर. तो ब्रिटिश नेशनैलिटी एक्ट जो आया था उसके बाद है, राइट? इमिग्रेंट्स के बारे में. तो ये सारे आपको पता होने चाहिए. ब्रिटिश नेशनैलिटी एक्ट जो आ रहा है, देखिए पॉलिटिकली 20th सेंचुरी में काफी सारी चीजें हो रही है जो आपको पता होनी चाहिए. जैसे 1945 में लेबर पार्टी कम्स टू पावर, 1950 तक वो कुछ चेंजेस नहीं लेके आ पाते हैं, कभी आपका एंग्री यंग मैन जनरेशन आ जाता है. तो यू विल ऑल्सो हैव टू रिमेंबर की इंपॉर्टेंट माइलस्टोन्स. जब हम 20th सेंचुरी लिटरेचर करेंगे, जैसे आज मैंने क्लासरूम स्टूडेंट्स को एक काम भी दिया है, तो रीड मॉडर्निज्म फ्रॉम रॉटलेज एज वेल, राइट? आई होप यू रिमेंबर क्लासरूम स्टूडेंट्स, बिकॉज वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट द कॉमन रीडर बाय वर्जीनिया वुल्फ. वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट हाउ वर्जीनिया वुल्फ इज ट्राइंग टू टॉक अबाउट द स्टाइल ऑफ मॉडर्निस्टिक राइटिंग. व्हाट इज वर्जीनिया वुल्फ सेइंग इन मॉडर्न फिक्शन? वर्जीनिया वुल्फ मॉडर्न फिक्शन में क्या कहती है? यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द ऑर्डिनरी, यू आर एक्सपीरियंसिंग मिरियड थिंग्स. जैसे जैसे आप एक्सपीरियंस कर रहे हो, आप वैसे वैसे चीजों को लिखते जाएंगे. दिस इज exactly what we were talking about, right? Hi Hamita, hi Bachi. So I hope you are all able to recollect that, okay? All right, moving on to a non-fictional work that is coming. Going to the Territory is written by, who's the writer who's writing Going to the Territory? Going to the Territory is a work written by, who's the writer who's writing Going to the Territory? Going to the Territory ये कौन लिख रहा है? Who's the writer who's writing this work Going to the Territory? कौन है ये राइटर that we're talking about Going to the Territory? Going to the Territory is written by which writer? This is a series of essays that we are discussing over here when we are looking at Going to the Territory. So who's the person who's associated with Going to the Territory? जल्दी बताइए. Going to the Territory, Going to the Territory, very important work. I'll give you a hint. He's the writer. Written very good. Monica and Ravi writing Invisible Men, right? Ralph Ellison is absolutely the right answer. This is absolutely the right answer. So Going to the Territory, a series of essays है by the same man who's writing Invisible Men, by the same person who's writing Invisible Man. So again आपका जो black writers movement है, black writings है, Afro-American literature है, that is also becoming very important in the 20th century. How they are trying to recover the voice. This is a kind of subaltern resurgence. Literature as a political activity altogether. So ये जो 17 essays थे collected in Going to the Territory by Ralph Ellison was not only one of America's most dazzling, right? That Ralph Ellison, proves that Ralph Ellison was not only America's most dazzling, innovative novelist, but also, somebody who was a good commentator on matters that were related to, literature, culture, and race. So Going to the Territory, he tries to provide a new look at William Faulkner, a new look at Richard Wright. Richard Wright is also an important person, right? So Richard Wright, William Faulkner, ये आपसे पूछा जा सकता है किसको दोबारा से रीइंटरप्रेट कर रहे हैं, विलियम फॉकनर के वर्क्स को और रिचर्ड राइट के वर्क्स को दोबारा से रीइंटरप्रेट कर रहे हैं, ठीक है. एंड यू नो दे आर गिविंग न्यू पर्सपेक्टिव ऑन द म्यूजिक ऑफ ड्यूक ऑफ इलिंगटन, right? So that is another thing that you're able to see altogether. So please keep that in mind. Please remember that altogether. ओके ये थोड़ा सा आपको चीज थोड़ी बहुत ध्यान में रखनी पड़ेगी. यू विल हैव टू कीप दैट इन माइंड. आई आल्सो हाइड माय सेल्फ सो दैट यू विल बी एबल टू सी द entire thing as well and you can capture the entire thing as well. Yeah, so what are you able to see ke, you know, of course he has written Invisible Man, all right, he's talking about the black identity crisis also. ठीक है, so please keep that in mind. ये जो essays है ये important essays है. आज भी हम वर्जीनिया वुल्फ का, remember when we were talking about Pastons and Chaucer, जहाँ पे unnecessarily वर्जीनिया वुल्फ कॉनरैड को बता देती हैं despite the fact that she is talking about 15th century writers. I hope you are able to recollect. Classroom class में we were discussing. So even going to the territory by Ralph Ellison, who is a writer of Invisible Man, trying to rework or you know talk again, revisit the works of Richard Wright and William Faulkner. ये please याद रखिएगा. No Man's Land was written by, who's the writer who's writing No Man's Land? So when we are looking at No Man's Land, who's the person who's associated with No Man's Land? जल्दी बताइए. Who's the writer who's associated with No Man's Land? No Man's Land, The War of Words. ये किसने लिखा है? This is actually a sequel to a very famous work. This is a sequel to a very famous work. So No Man's Land जो आपका work है of criticism, who is the writer who's associated with No Man's Land? So when we are talking about No Man's Land, right? So please tell us that you know who is the person who's associated with it. There's also a book, by the way, No Man's Land. Right? Jaldi बताइए. What is the correct answer? What is the correct answer that you're able to see? No Man's Land, Gilbert and Gubar. Yes. So Gilbert and Gubar. ये जो आपके Google search से आप लेके आ रहे हैं. Gilbert and Gubar. This is actually a sequel that you are able to see to Mad Woman in the Attic. Mad Woman in the Attic by Gilbert and Gubar, that is coming in, right? That's telling you about Bertha Mason's character as well. No Man's Land is actually a sequel to the work, right? तो ये चीज आपको थोड़ी बहुत ध्यान में रखनी पड़ेगी. You will have to keep that in mind as well. So when we are looking at No Man's Land, ये सारे के सारे जैसे Man-Made Language by Dale Spender, right? Man-Made Language by Dale Spender, ये सारे के सारे वर्क्स आपके लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है. आज भी जो मैं आपको मॉडर्न क्रिटिसिज्म बता रही थी, वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट एंड्रोजनी, फेमिनिज्म, उसमें वर्जीनिया वुल्फ फेमिनिस्टिक राइटिंग्स ही लिख रही हैं. Please keep that in mind. Good evening, dear Jyoti. So sweet of you. So please remember, No Man's Land जो आपका है, this is actually a sequel to the author, you know, to the Mad Woman in the Attic by Gilbert and Gubar altogether, right? It is trying to tell you about the conflict between men and women writers. देखो अभी हम यही डिस्कस कर रहे थे कि वर्जीनिया वुल्फ कहती हैं why is Shakespeare successful? Shakespeare is successful because he is a man, right? Had there been Judith Shakespeare, then she wouldn't have been as successful because the society wouldn't have really recommended her to be that. ठीक है, तो sorry. Right, so this is something that you'll have to keep in mind. This is something that you'll have to remember overall, that you know No Man's Land, how this becomes a sequel altogether. And hide myself so that you can see it entirely and we can quickly look at it as well. So again यहाँ पर what are you able to see? You are able to see the battle that is there, that is being spoken about altogether, right? कैसे आपका women's writing का space बनाया जाता है, how half of the population is left out and then they have to come back all together. So No Man's Land, women are not given equal footing, right? Please remember this. This is also equally an important work that you are able to see. So No Man's Land जो आपका आता है, that is equally an important work that you are able to look at. Okay, so here we've seen Ralph Ellison, here we've seen Gilbert and Gubar also writing essays that are coming in. Which famous new critic wrote the poem Bells for John Whiteshead's Daughter? Bells for John Whiteshead's Daughter. ये किसने लिखा है? Who's the famous person that we're talking about, right? Who's this famous new critic that we are talking about? Bells for John Whiteside's Daughter. Whiteside's Daughter. Yes, Sony. Yes. Whiteside Daughter. Jaldi bataiye, what is the correct answer over here? What is the correct answer that you are able to see? What is the correct answer that you are able to get? Jaldi bataiye. What is the correct answer over here in your opinion? प्लीज क्विकली आंसर इट, प्लीज क्विकली आंसर इट. यहाँ पर आपके हिसाब से what becomes the correct answer that you're able to see? Let's just see how many of you get it right. This is actually John Crow ransom. Remember कल हम लोगों ने क्या कहा था, जो word है new criticism वो हमें कौन दे रहा है, स्पिंगान दे रहा है in 1910. New criticism, कल जब हम लोगों ने modern criticism को डिस्कस किया था, I hope you remember क्लासरूम क्लास में हम लोगों ने क्या कहा था कि स्पिंगान इज गिविंग अस द टर्म ऑफ न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म. बाद में 1941 में जब जॉन क्रो रैंसम अपना न्यू क्रिटिसिज्म लिख रहे हैं तब एक और वर्ड आ रहा है आपका. और आज भी जब हम लोग क्लासरूम क्लास में रेने वेलिक को कर रहे थे, उस राइटिंग क्राइसिस इन कंपैरेटिव लिटरेचर, याद है अपनी लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म की बुक के अंदर जिसमें आपके चैप्टर्स आ रहे हैं, इज ऑल्सो राइटिंग क्राइसिस इन कंपैरेटिव लिटरेचर. आई होप आपको रिकलेक्ट हो रहा है. अभी अभी हम लोगों ने करा था रेने वेलिक, हु इज ऑल्सो a person associated with your Russian formalism. We had spoken about that also, right? So please keep that in mind. Please remember that when we are looking at, when we are talking about, okay, yeah, Hamida, we are going to be having, don't worry at all about it. Abhi to, these are more like discussions that were taking place at 10:30 to get you, build you in the rhythm, to tell you how you need to take that forward. So this is John Crow ransom, okay? So please remember that, right? Please remember that this is what is John Crow Ransom's writing, and this is actually getting inspired by John Donne's devotions upon emergent occasions. That is what it's actually getting inspired from. Okay. So bells for John Whiteside's daughter. ये कौन लिख रहा है? This is written by John Crow Ransom. John Crow Ransom जिसने New Criticism 1941 में आपको दिया था. So John Crow Ransom, he is writing bells for John Whiteside's daughter. This is an elegy, okay? It was collected in Chills and Fever for the very first time altogether. It's a 5-stanza poem telling you about the unexpected death that, the impact that unexpected death has on the life altogether, that you're able to see. And this girl was like, loud, energetic overall, but now is completely silent because of the death that has taken place. Okay. And ye jo bells hai na, this is alluding to John Donne's devotion upon emergent occasions. Okay. Never sent to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee, right? Never. So here those are the lines. That is where bells ka jo reference aa raha hai. I'll come a little down over here so that you'll be able to see that. Okay. So bells for John Whiteside's daughter. This is an elegy. This is a song of lamentation. This is threnody. This is monody that is coming from the pen of John Crow Ransom. ठीक है, तो सारे pointers आप लोगों ने revise भी कर लिए हैं. I hope that is absolutely clear. Yeah, Devashish, not just comparative literature, crisis in comparative literature is the work that he is writing. ठीक है, so please keep that in mind. Please remember that altogether. Moving on to the last question for today, and then we'll go on to the war novels. बहुत ही briefly मैं आज आपको बताने वाली हूँ. Which work of John Donne is a defense of suicide? So John Donne के जो works हैं, which work by John Donne is actually a defense of suicide? And today also when we were talking about, remember we said Virginia Woolf, James Joyce, both of them are passing away in 1941, right? Remember I told you Virginia Woolf का style में क्या है? She's talking about moments of being. It is a very structured stream of consciousness, whereas James Joyce is telling you about moments of epiphany. James Joyce is telling you about moments of epiphany. I hope you're able to. Very good, Supratim. Absolutely right. Yes, perspectivism also Devashish. Absolutely right. Rene Wellick में हम लोगों ने एक और चीज जो डिस्कस करी थी, that was perspectivism. राइट, एंड तभी आपका कंपैरेटिव लिटरेचर आता है, बिकॉज पर्सपेक्टिविज्म, मल्टीपल पर्सपेक्टिव से आप रीड कर सकते हो उसको, राइट? वेरी गुड सुप्रतिम. बाय थैनाटोस इज एब्सोल्युटली द राइट आंसर. सुप्रतिम हैज गॉट द राइट आंसर. बाय थैनाटोस इज एब्सोल्युटली द करेक्ट आंसर. ठीक है, so by Thanatos is a work by John Donne, right, which is actually trying to tell you about self homicide and a defense of that. हम लोग ये भी आपको बता रहे थे कल से, ये भी associated है आपका जो absurd literature. By the way मैंने आपको absurd literature पे homework दिया था. I don't know आप लोगों ने करा है कि नहीं. I had asked you कि जो literary movements जो है ना, उसको आपने read करके आना है. उसमें जो आपका पूरा का पूरा, आई डोंट नो हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू, एक तो आप लोग होमवर्क पता नहीं करते हैं कि नहीं करते हैं, आधे ज्यादा तो करते नहीं है, बट एनीवे, बट प्लीज डू इट, बिकॉज इफ यू डोंट डू द होमवर्क ना, नाउ आई स्टार्ट टेस्टिंग यू ऑल आल्सो, सो दैट आई गेट टू नो. मैंने कल आपको बोला था वो लिटरेरी मूवमेंट से प्लीज एक बार absurd लिटरेचर प्लीज रीड करके आइएगा. फाइन, so please make it a point that you're definitely reading absurd literature from there. right? All right. So please complete that homework that I had given you. Please complete that homework also that I had given you. क्योंकि मैं आपको कल बता रही थी कि when you're looking at absurd writings also existentialism किस चीज को favor करता है? एक तरह से it says that suicide is a form of radical endorsement because at least you have guts to move away from here. ठीक है, तो आई होप यू आर एब्सोल्युटली क्लियर ऑल टुगेदर. ठीक है, आई होप यू आर एब्सोल्युटली क्लियर. देवशिश, आई हैव ऑलरेडी मेड अ शॉट ऑन दिस. ठीक है, I've already made a shot on books related to post-colonialism. I will just make sure that the team gets it live all together. ठीक है, post-colonialism पे जो books हैं, I've already made a shot recommending the books all together. I'll just make sure that it comes out live also for all of you. Okay, all right. So these are your icebreaker questions. Now coming back all together, जो आपके war writings हैं. अच्छा, एक और last question है. I completely forgot about this question altogether. जल्दी से बताइए. This is the last question. Ode to the Confederate Dead. Ode to the Confederate Dead. और ये भी एक बहुत important critic है. This is also a very important critic who's writing Ode to the Confederate Dead. ये कौन लिख रहे हैं? He's a very famous American poet critic that you are having. Mr. Pope and other poems इन्होंने लिखा था. Who's this writer that we're talking about? गंगापुत्र. बच्चे आपका ये जो YouTube का क्लास है Monday to Friday it's at 10:30 PM. ठीक है, चलिए जल्दी बताइए. Ode to the Confederate Dead. Ode to the Confederate Dead. ये जल्दी बताइए. This is by Alan Tate. In the interest of time, this is by Alan Tate. Okay. So Ode to the Confederate Dead. ये कौन लिख रहा है? ये आपका American critic Alan Tate लिख रहे हैं. ठीक है, American critic Alan Tate is writing this. This is Ode to the Confederate Dead. This is a long poem by American poet Alan Tate altogether. ठीक है, this is first book of poems जो आपका था इनका Mr. Pope and other poems उसमें आ रहा है. Alright, it was influenced by the works of T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot का कल हम लोगों ने करा था. Remember, we had talked about frontiers of criticism. We talked about tradition and individual talent, Hamlet and his problems. We talked about metaphysical poets जहाँ पे ये Andrew Marvell के ऊपर भी लिखते हैं. And I'd also given you other works that are coming, right? The function of criticism in the present times. Remember when we were talking about Matthew Arnold, वो भी चीज मैंने आपको बताया था. Yes, absolutely right. The tension in poetry. That is the correct answer. I'll just hide myself so that you can actually see this better. Right. So ये चीज आपको याद रखना है. Neha, we are also waiting for the result. That's exactly what we are waiting for. Do let us know if you need any support. Right. अच्छी तरह से आप इसको क्रॉस चेक बार बार करते रहिएगा. जैसे ही आएगा हम लोग भी आपको एक बार नोटिफिकेशन डाल देंगे. ठीक है. So please keep that in mind. Ode to the Confederate Dead. This is a work by Alan Tate. ठीक है. Please keep that in mind. Solipsism is also very important. Remember, romantic poetry is associated with solipsism. आप खुद के बारे में ही बोल रहे हैं. Okay, yes, absolutely right, Devashish. Now coming on to quickly, and ये part हम लोग briefly आज first part में कर रहे हैं. इसको हम continue भी करेंगे war novels को. मैं आपको 2-3 और important war novels भी discuss करवाऊंगी. लेकिन आज कुछ ऐसी war novels जैसे War and Peace, जैसे Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow जल्दी से हम लोग discuss करेंगे next 5 मिनट के अंदर. तो देरी नहीं करते हुए फटाफट से इसको start करते हैं. जैसे मैंने कहा war novels कौन सी novels हैं? War novels वो हैं या तो जो इंस्पायर्ड है आपके वॉर से. जैसे आपका अमेरिकन सिविल वॉर हो गया. ठीक है, आपका अमेरिकन सिविल वॉर हो गया, आपका आपका वर्ल्ड वॉर हो गया, आपका पेलोपोनेसियन वॉर हो गया. राइट, उसमें नॉवेल्स नहीं है, प्लेज आ रहे हैं. ठीक है, आपके वर्ल्ड वॉर्स हो गए जो आ रहे हैं. आपका नाइजीरियन सिविल वॉर अभी, क्योंकि हम लोगों ने हाफ ऑफ येलो सन देखा था बाय अदिची अबाउट 3 कैरेक्टर्स. सो नाइजीरियन सिविल वॉर हो गया. ऑस्ट्रेलिया में एंजैक डे हो गया. राइट, आपका ऑस्ट्रेलिया न्यूजीलैंड डे जो आ जाता है. यस, एब्सोल्युटली राइट रवि. Catch 22 भी है, Catch 22 हम लोग करेंगे लेकिन आज नहीं है. आज Slaughterhouse 5, Regeneration, Norman Mailer के work, right, we'll be talking about. So there are total 5 important quick works that I would like to introduce you in terms of war novels. तो जब आप ऐसे themes बना के पढ़ते हैं, your retention becomes a little better. Yes, Crimean War, War and Peace also we'll be talking about it. ठीक है, जब आप ऐसे themes बना के पढ़ते हैं, जैसे top famous utopian works, most important dystopian works, most important war novels, ठीक है, तो उससे आपकी जो स्टडीज होती है that become a little more classified, better हो जाता है. ये comparative literature में भी प्रमोट किया जाता है. This kind of a study is also promoted in your comparative literature. ठीक है, अब देखिए first of all आपका बेस्ट एग्जाम्पल क्या है, लियो टोल्स्टॉय का वॉर एंड पीस. ठीक है, War and Peace is telling you about the invasion of Russia by Napoleon, right? The invasion of Russia by Napoleon, that is the backdrop. ये क्या है आपका, that is the backdrop that you are able to see in the complete invasion that is taking place. That is actually the backdrop that you are able to look at. ठीक है, so please remember that, please keep that in mind. Yes, Sevastopol sketches also is trying to come from the experience of the Crimean War altogether. Thank you so much, Ganga Putra. Yes, absolutely right. मैं बोलती नहीं हूँ, but please don't forget the drill. Please do subscribe so that you get to know whenever a video is coming. Yeah, thanks, Ganga Putra. Ganga Putra is acting like the branding manager today for the class. Thank you. Okay. So यहाँ पर आपको याद रखना है, right? Your characters like Natasha, Prince Andrei, Pere. इसकी एक बार आप थोड़ा सा summary करिएगा. Otherwise, we will be looking at it. एक बार इसकी अच्छी तरह से थोड़ा सा summary देख लीजिएगा. But War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy is actually one of the most important examples of your war poems altogether. Yes, absolutely right, Ravi. Absolutely right. फिर आपका Slaughterhouse 5, right? Now, when we are talking about Kurt Vonnegut, when we are looking at Kurt Vonnegut, what are you able to see कि आपका जो Slaughterhouse 5 है, that is again a very important work that is coming in. ठीक है, so again ये भी चीज आपको याद रखनी है that how Slaughterhouse 5 becomes a very important piece of writing. How Slaughterhouse 5, अच्छा, by the way, when we are talking about Slaughterhouse 5, इसका subtitle क्या है? The Children's Crusade, a duty dance with death. The Children's Crusade, a duty dance with death, right? That is the entire name of the novel that we'll have to remember, because ये title भी आपका completely आता है, and you will have to know about these things as well, because कई बार क्या होता है that we very often forget these important works that are coming in, but you'll actually have to remember that. So this is also a war novel that we are able to see narrated, of course, यहाँ पर overall. So again, your character Billy Pilgrim is trying to tell you about Slaughterhouse 5. So Slaughterhouse 5 title कहाँ से? It's telling you about the slaughterhouse, right? जो आपका कसाई का घर है in Dresden, Germany. ये question आपका आ चुका है, where the American prisoners of war, including Kurt Vonnegut, were actually housed during the bombing that was taking place altogether. So again, what you are able to see, these men, of course, they survived. ठीक है, they survived. Technically slaughterhouse में आपको लेके आया जाता है ताकि आपको butcher कर दिया जाए, आपको मार दिया जाए, लेकिन they are actually saved. ये आपको क्या याद दिलाता है? ये आपको Moby Dick याद दिलाता है, because remember Moby Dick में what is saving Ishmael? That's actually the coffin that is saving Ishmael, the ostensible symbol of death that is saving Ishmael. तो ये चीज आपको उसका रेफरेंस करवा देता है कि the symbol of death is actually saving you altogether. That is what you are able to see. ठीक है, this is what I was telling you. This is the subtitle, The Children's Crusade, a duty dance with death altogether. It is trying to allude to the disastrous children's crusade that had taken place in 1212 altogether. ठीक है, and it was enacted by young people to take them back to Jerusalem from the Muslims, the holy crusades that were taking place altogether. ठीक है, तो again Kurt Vonnegut क्या बताना चाह रहे हैं, that wars are fought by the most unskilled and unprepared altogether. They don't even know, they get killed altogether. ये सारी चीजें वो लेके आ रहे हैं. So Slaughterhouse 5, Dresden का जो सेटिंग है ये आपको याद रखना है, सबटाइटल आपको याद रखना है, बिली पिलग्रिम का कैरेक्टर आपको याद रखना है. You will have to keep that in mind. And War and Peace के बाद Slaughterhouse 5 is also, just like somebody said, Joseph Heller का Catch 22 also, These are very important 20th century war novels, right? So when we are looking at Slaughterhouse-5, when we are looking at Catch-22, ये बहुत important आपकी 20th century war novels हैं जो आपको याद रखनी है, ठीक है? So please remember, और context क्या है? जैसे for instance आपका War and Peace का context क्या था? War and Peace का आपका context था that the Napoleon invasion of Russia था, telling you the story of Natasha altogether. Here the context is actually a little different that you'll have to keep in mind, okay? So please remember that. Very good, Ravi. Absolutely right. Please remember that altogether. Okay. And no, war is, यहाँ पे वो कहते हैं, it's for a good cause altogether. But that's not the truth that you're able to see. Young men who are unprepared. In Billy Pilgrim's case, they are under equipped. They are expected to accept and face the brutality of war altogether. They are made to participate. Billy के जो actions है, they are pitied. It's a very romanticized version of war that is given to you. It's a pitied, like हम लोगों को बोला जाता है, it's glorious to go and fight in a war, but the mockery is that people who are stupid will actually go and fight a war, right? They're underprepared, they're not aware, they're naive, they're gullible altogether. तो ये चीज आपको ध्यान में रखनी है altogether. So Slaughterhouse-5, right? Please remember the Children's Crusade, Duty Dance with Death, that you're able to see the complete subtitle that is coming in. ये आप याद रखना, ठीक है? I hope अभी भी आपको ये याद हो गया होगा, तो ये आप थोड़ा सा प्लीज ध्यान में रखिएगा. Regeneration, which is our third major work over here that we are having by Pat Barker. Okay, this is again another important war work that we are able to see that is coming from the pen of Pat Barker. Pat Barker का जो work है, again trying to deal with the regeneration trilogy, so war trilogy itself. ठीक है, again the method used on traumatized soldiers, officers at military hospitals altogether. ठीक है, and here आपका जो protagonist है W.H.R. Rivers, right? It is based on this actual figure who was a medical practitioner who's helping patients to bring memories of traumatic experiences into their conscious mind so that they can become free, right? They can free them altogether by just talking it out, by discussing it. Okay, he's an army psychiatrist. He's treating these British soldiers who are traumatized by the horrors of World War One. Rivers is having the duty of healing them from their anguish, and the ultimate goal is sending them back to the battlefield. All right. So how insane that is, that you're getting regenerated to actually be thrown back into the ditch, the same ditch that you don't want to go, the same ditch that gave you that traumatized experience, आपको फिर वापस उसमें धकेला जा रहा है. That is a question that Pat Barker is asking. राइट. सो पूरा का पूरा जो कैरेक्टर है डॉक्टर रिवर्स का, W.H.R. रिवर्स का जो पूरा कैरेक्टर है, हाउ ही इज ट्राइंग टू प्रिपेयर, हाउ ही इज ट्राइंग टू एक्ट, कंपेयर दिस विद, रिमेंबर अभी जैसे मिसेस डैलोवे, पीटर वॉल्श का कैरेक्टर with whom Dalloway was in love but her father did not permit, right? And then she actually had to get married to Richard, right? The conservative party leader. With Septimus Warren Smith का जो character we were talking about, he is also a war weary soldier, right? And this is exactly what he's also dealing with. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Regeneration by Pat Barker, Slaughterhouse-5 by Kurt Vonnegut, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, and Your Gravity's Rainbow, the fourth one that we're looking at. We're looking at 5 war works only today. आज हम 5 war works को ही देख रहे हैं. We are only looking at 5 war works altogether. So Thomas Pynchon, again, he was really not interested in publicity, but he was very witty altogether. Okay, and his writing, the way that he's trying to capture the American society, इन्होंने V लिखा है, The Crying Lot of 49 लिखा है, Gravity's Rainbow लिखा है. All of these works are coming by him, right? V, Crying Lot 49, Gravity's Rainbow is coming from him. That is there. ठीक है, so please remember that Gravity's Rainbow is again another important work where we are able to see that how war is being spoken about. Rockets, the war equipments are coming in gravity's rainbow altogether. So that is another interesting aspect that you're able to see. So again, Thomas Pynchon का भी जो work है, when we are looking at gravity's rainbow, एक बार आपने ये सारे के सारे works को, इनकी सारी की सारी summaries को एक और बार देखिएगा, that you know how this is again, you know, gravity's rainbow is getting inspired from the Second World War scene altogether. ठीक है, and you know ये जो पूरी की पूरी novel है, the narrative is set in Europe. वर्ल्ड वॉर वन खत्म हो रहा, वर्ल्ड वॉर टू आपका इज कमिंग टू अ क्लोज ऑल टुगेदर, ठीक है, बट आपका जो V2 रॉकेट्स थे, आपके जो V2 रॉकेट्स थे, यू नो, बाय द जर्मन मिलिट्री, वो कैसे डिजाइन किए गए थे, वो कैसे प्रोड्यूस किए गए थे, वो कैसे डिस्पैच किए गए थे, द फीचर्स दैट वर देयर ऑल टुगेदर, दीज आर डिस्ट्रक्टिव इक्विपमेंट्स बाय द वे, दे आर द ब्लैक डिवाइसेस सो टू से, राइट। तो ये चीज आपको याद रखनी है, दैट यू नो ग्रेविटीज रेनबो इज लिटरली ट्राइंग टू टेल यू अबाउट ऑल ऑफ दीज डिटेल्स ऑल टुगेदर, ठीक है, 4 पार्ट्स के अंदर डिवाइडेड है, एपिसोड्स बता रहे हैं, देयर आर 4 इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट्स। ये क्वेश्चन आपका आता है कितने पार्ट्स में इट इज एक्चुअली डिवाइडेड, इट्स हैविंग 4 इंपॉर्टेंट मेजर पार्ट्स दैट यू आर एबल टू सी। सो अगेन ग्रेविटीज रेनबो यू आर एबल टू सी बाय थॉमस पिंशन, अगेन बिकम्स अ वेरी फेमस एग्जांपल ऑफ योर वॉर राइटिंग, जो आपका वॉर लिटरेचर आ रहा है, जो आपका वॉर लिटरेचर प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है, ठीक है, द करप्शन, द पावर स्ट्रगल्स दैट आर देयर इन द वॉर altogether. आपने देखी भी होगी वो मूवी रंग दे बसंती, where you are able to see, remember, R Madhavan dies because there is poor quality war equipment that has been taken, right, which leads to his death over there altogether. So again यही चीज है, that military corruption, because war was also filling the pockets of people, so that is also something that is being highlighted in Gravity's Rainbow, ठीक है, ये वाला पॉइंट भी आपका Gravity's Rainbow में आ रहा है. So do take a look at all of these works: Gravity's Rainbow, Kurt Vonnegut, Regeneration, War and Peace, and last but not the least, The Naked and the Dead by Norman Mailer. ठीक है, ये किसकी बता रहा है? A platoon of 13 American soldiers who are stationed in the Japanese held island of Anopipi in the Pacific. ठीक है, journalistic detail में Mailer is trying to tell you the lives of men at war. All right, flashbacks that they are going through, what is it to be a soldier altogether, The Naked and the Dead by Norman Mailer. तो ये सारे के सारे और आपकी और भी, these are all examples of what is famously called as your war writing, your war literature overall, war novels. तो अगर आप इनको इस तरह से भी पढ़ते हैं, right, you try to bifurcate your study. By the way, it's 11:11. You can also make a wish, right? You can all make a wish as well that you probably have for yourself. You can also just make sure that you're also making, you know, your so-called wishes also, because it's 11:11. All right. I think most of the times this evening 11:11 manifestation time we are having together only. So do make a wish, right? And may those wishes come true also. So again, what are we able to see? We are able to see ये सारे के सारे आपके वॉर नॉवेल्स हैं, और भी बहुत सारे हैं जो सेकंड पार्ट में हम लोग थोड़ा सा देखेंगे भी इनको. टुडे आई रियली वांट ऑल ऑफ यू टू रिव्यू, आई रियली वांट ऑल ऑफ यू टू अगेन गो बैक टू ऑल ऑफ दीज राइटिंग्स. ठीक है, मैं आपको बार बार ये स्केड्यूल दे रही हूँ, मैं इसको टेलीग्राम पे एक बार इस बार स्टिक भी करवा दूंगी, ताकि यू कैन हैव दैट यू नो ऑन द टेलीग्राम प्लेटफॉर्म एज वेल, एंड यू कैन रिमेंबर दैट, एंड यू नो यू कैन जॉइन दोज मास्टर क्लासेस अकॉर्डिंगली. ठीक है, yes, very good, Ravi. Thanks so much for encapsulating everything. Ravi has encapsulated everything. Half of a Yellow Sun, Mimic Man, No Man's Island, No Man's Land, okay, Regeneration, One Piece, बहुत सारी और भी चीजें थी, तो उसको भी आप अच्छी तरह से एक बार देख लीजिएगा. अब सर लिटरेचर को भी पूरा कर लीजिएगा. And if there are any other doubts that you are having, any other questions that you are facing, please feel free to let me know. My mail ID is neerja.raheja.faculty@textbook.com. उसमें आप अपना डाउट जरूर पोस्ट कर दीजिएगा. आई थिंक एमपीपीसीएस का किसी ने लिखा था कमेंट सेक्शन में, और भी कुछ होगा तो मुझे बता दीजिएगा. फाइन, थैंक्स समर, थैंक्स रवि, थैंक्स सत्येंद्र, thanks Rashmi, thanks Devashish. So basically 11:11 is considered to be the minute of manifestation, right? So 11:11 a.m. and 11:11 p.m. आप क्या कर सकते हैं? You can write down your manifestation. This is not me. This is called manifestations. Very popularly known. So you can take a look at it. Thanks Ravi. Thank you so much. Thanks Devashish. Thanks Monica, Pragati, Supratim. All right. Take care everyone. I'll catch up with all of you tomorrow. Please review everything that we've discussed today, as well as what we looked at yesterday. Classroom students, please complete all your studies properly, and in case if there are any other doubts, please do keep me posted about that. Fine, thank you so much everyone. I'll catch up with all of you tomorrow. Take good care of yourselves. God bless. Bye. Thank Thank you. Good night. Good night, Satindra, Ravi, Spartacus. All right. Thanks, everyone.